Welcome to our first European webinar on sustainability across a considerable number of countries, actually from west from the UK till Turkey and from north to south from Sweden till Iberia and Italy. We have a compilation of all of our learnings on sustainability, leveraging a number of surveys, including our global survey, polling 30,000 consumers across 60 countries, and reports, including data mining of our Nielsen RMS sales data over the last 2 to 3 years, and complemented by learnings from our own work and some real-life examples. Our objective is to start a discussion on this topic and understand how we can support you on your brand sustainability journey. And just a few remarks. The presentation will last about 40 minutes. And you are invited to post questions, which we will try to answer at the end of the session. And the document we are using, actually, you can find in the attachment and link section as a PDF, which you can download. And also the webinar will be recorded. Before we get started, we would like to introduce ourselves to you. My name is Claudia Gapp, over 20 years at Nielsen and coming from the consumer insights business in several regional and European roles. Current role started last year, mid of last year, and is focused on working with NGOs, with the UN, and also with corporations across Europe, with focus on all other countries aside from the UK. And my colleague, Rachel Noon, she is over 12 years at Nielsen, working across our commercial teams, both in the UK and Europe and globally, most recently focused on Unilever EU. And her current role started at the end of 2015 and is focused on working with NGOs and corporations, which are based in the UK, partnering on sustainability strategies and initiatives. During our discussion today, we'll cover off on the continued emerging trend we are seeing in sustainability and how sustainable brands are outperforming their counterparts. So, let's get started. Let's first start with defining sustainability, because sustainability can sometimes be defined in many ways. We wanted to take a moment to level set before we continue with today's discussion. When we at Nielsen talk about sustainability, we are really talking about the big S. And under that big S of sustainability, it includes environmental, social, and governance. As it pertains to our report and the insights we will share with you today, we will focus more on the first two, environmental and social, and how this factors into consumer sentiment and purchasing decisions. Environmental, as example, we can think of use of natural resources, waste management, pollution, and of course climate change impact. Social would be use of human capital, human rights, health effects, customer care, and governance may be all related to public policy, corporate policies and practices in business ethics, for example. Let's start with the big picture. I'm sure you are all aware of the global goals for sustainable development have been launched by the UN. They aim to achieve 3 extraordinary things by 2030: end poverty, combat climate change, and fight injustice and inequality. When you have time, please take a look at the video here. The time is now. And this is not only in the responsibility of governments, but corporations are taking an important role in embedding the SDGs into the sustainability strategies. So, what do we know? Let's start by us sharing with you some of the insights we have found in the last 2 years. And being Nielsen, we start with the sales. The slide that says it all. Sustainability can and should coexist with a company's growth strategy. They are not mutually exclusive, and at Nielsen there is no shortage of data, and in this case retail sales data. We can mine that data to understand how sustainable brands perform versus non-sustainable brands, as those not communicating their efforts to consumers. And what we have found after looking at 1,300 brands across 13 categories and 30 markets is, on average, products with sustainability efforts contributed to over 4% greater sales than those that are not demonstrating this commitment, growing less than 1%. And consumers are willing to pay more. And consumers are so aware and so engaged that we have seen a continued rise in their intent. 66 of global respondents are willing to pay more for sustainable goods. That is up from 55% in 2014 and 50% in 2013. This is consumer sentiment. This is what they are saying. So what's most important here is the trending of it, the momentum, and importance continues to rise and to increase. Okay, we know that 66% is our global average of consumers willing to pay more for sustainable goods. I think we have gotten that point across. But how does that look across regions? Also, growth is seen across all regions. The largely developing regions continue to lead the charge. Consumers in developing markets face these challenges on a daily basis and are more impacted by the lack of actions and care for their communities. This leads to a desire to give back and help others. Therefore, developing markets display the highest priority for buying sustainably and giving back to community. And in developed markets, consumers are harder to influence, and many consider sustainability a basic cost of entry, and therefore consumers are expecting companies to be socially and environmentally responsible. It is an imperative. And interestingly, in Europe, which is considered a mature and developed region, we show Russia contributing the most and driving the growth. In fact, 23% growth versus last year in Russia alone. So if paying a premium helps make a positive impact and a difference, then consumers are more than willing to do their part. And how does this translate into the markets? Russia and Turkey as growing markets showing value above the EU average, but so do the green countries like Austria and Switzerland. Expecting and demanding sustainability in the brands they buy, we can see in the big developed markets like UK, France, Spain, with values below the EU average. Where does the interest lie? Who are the consumers driving this crusade to purchase sustainably? Consumers across regions, income levels and categories are willing to pay more if doing so ensures they remain loyal to their values. Despite the fact that millennials are coming of age in the most difficult economic climate in the last 100 years, they continue to be most willing to pay extra for sustainable offerings. 2 out of 3, 73% respondents in the latest findings, up from approximately half in 2014. And by 2025, they will be 75% of the workforce, a force that will change the landscape of purchasing. The rise in the percentage of respondents under 20 who are willing to pay more was equally strong, from 55% of total respondents in 2014 to 72% in 2015. And once this group becomes gainfully employed, we will expect to see these numbers continue to rise, and this group leading the way for future generations. But don't abandon baby boomers in the quest for millennials. This segment will remain a substantial and viable market in the coming decade for select products and services from sustainable brands. They may be an aging population, but still possess a great deal of buying power and influence. We also wanted to understand what sustainability factors influence their purchasing decisions. In a world of choice, it is important to look why a product is chosen, among others. What we can see is that the hierarchy of purchase drivers is changing. And topping the list of factors that influence purchasing for more than half of our global survey respondents is brand trust. And that's consistent across the generations who are leading the charge in sustainable product purchasing and expectations, Generation Z and Millennials. Across the board, these factors are just as important, if not more important, to these younger consumers, especially when it comes to being socially conscious and environmentally friendly. Look into the trust purchasing driver further in Europe. Made by a company I trust. Trust and reputation is paramount in Turkey, but also for consumers in the German, Austrian market and in Iberia. Markets do vary, and this highlights the importance for companies to understand individual markets and tailor the approach accordingly. What is, however, the key sustainability purchasing driver for Europe? It is fresh and natural and organic ingredients. Looking at the countries and natural ingredients as purchase driver, again, Turkey and Russia are above average, but also again Germany and Austria, Spain, this time Italy, are high. As we shared earlier, important to understand individual countries. Now, I will hand over to Rachel, who will be looking further into the communication of sustainability.
Thank you, Claudia, and good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to start by looking at the activation methods used by the brands in the study. So what we've done here is extracted the percentage of sales that are driven by brands that use on-pack communication and those brands that use marketing, whether it's in-store or online, and finally those that didn't message it. And what you can see from a global perspective is there's a mix of activation methods being used across developed and developing markets. In Europe, you can see a higher mix of on-pack claims to authenticate a brand's sustainability efforts, plus marketing to fully understand the good they're driving. And we think it's because it's generally harder to influence consumers in developed markets to purchase or pay more. So you have to pull out all the stops to communicate the good you're doing to engage with these consumers. This leads us on to showcasing the message. So a few examples of brands doing exactly that. If we start with claims on pack, I'm sure you're all aware of fair trade claims on chocolate brands, Rainforest Alliance, UTZ on tea and coffee brands, and MSC in the seafood category. Then we also have marketing messages on pack, for example, Saving the Rainforest, where marketing connects the brand to a specific cause. So brands are messaging their commitment on their packaging. The question we have is, how important is this, and do consumers read these messages? And the answer is yes. So we know that 75% of consumers globally, so that's 3 out of 4 people, claim they read packaging carefully, whether it's the ingredients, the nutritional information, or the claim on pack. You know, we live in a hyper-connected world with access to numerous devices, and this fuels a lot of the interest in understanding more about the brands consumers buy. So if we drill down into health and wellness claims, which we saw was the top driver in Europe, consumers view food with a skeptical eye. In Europe, 1 in 2 consumers trust health claims on food packages. So the industry really has the opportunity to be much more transparent about the contents and sources of food, providing stronger scientific support for health claims to really build consumer trust. So let's take it a step further and look at sustainability claims specifically. So over half of consumers globally report they check packaging before purchasing with a sustainable claim. And in Europe, this is 1 in 3 people. For millennials, it's even higher, so it's at 58%. And we know a significant number of products don't sport any on-pack sustainability claims. Instead, they rely on marketing to convey this message. And these brands might want to reconsider to persuade buyers at shelf. So our question to you is, have you considered if and how your brand can support sustainability messaging? There are many different ways brands can message, from the packaging of the product you purchase to the packaging it arrives in at your door. We've seen a drinks company create billboards with grass, in-store signage committing to delivering on sustainability. I recently saw one of the big retailers in the UK stating this very clearly with a sign that said, "We believe in sustainable fishing, hook, line and sinker." And more recently, a beer company using a wrapper to convey their sustainability message. So finally, the bags we take our shopping home in. Now let's move into our final section. Is there an opportunity to drive growth with sustainability? So if we start by taking a look at consumer demand around sustainable products, this is from a global study Nielsen conducted last year on new product innovation. And as part of that study, we found that 42% of global consumers want more new products in the market that are socially responsible and environmentally friendly. Now, if we take a regional view, product availability, or rather unavailability, may be part of this demand story. So let's focus on the top row. So when we look at caring for the environment, an average of 22% of European respondents said they wish there were more environmentally friendly products available, while only 7% said they purchased a product because of its environmental benefits. And as it relates to positive social impact, the next row, a very similar story emerges. An average of 12% wish more products were committed to positive social impact, while only 4% purchased a product because of its social benefits. So the findings suggest there may be a gap in product availability, whether that's perceived or real, where we feel is an opportunity for growth and to meet consumer demand. Our data-based mining also shows this. We looked at the concepts we tested with an environmental sustainable initiative, and we can see they're growing, they're still at a very low level. So 77% of all concepts tested included a sustainable message. So there is opportunity for many more. Finally, inspiration is all around us, whether it is new products or repositioning and marketing of existing products. Key is focusing on the causes that directly align to your brand promise and resonate deeply with consumers. Here's a couple of examples of brand taglines. The highest standards weren't available, so we created them, from a large retailer. A jeans brand advertising, "These jeans are made of garbage." A petrol company carrying the line, "Your ignition is my extinction, let's go." A shop that has been in our high streets for years and one of the first to message their work in this area, "Protecting your planet." And finally, an ice cream brand with a strong focus on CSR. "If it's melted, it's ruined." So as we draw to a close, I'd like to wrap up with a brief summary and provide you with a few questions and actions we feel that should be considered when you are thinking about sustainability and how to drive growth. So we've seen today the hard fact is products with sustainable benefits are growing. To ensure your brand can build in this, ensure you know what your brand's sustainable benefit is. We know that consumers care. Actually, they more than care. Consumers are expecting companies to be socially conscious and environmentally friendly, and they're seeking out, and in some cases, demanding sustainable products. Consumers in Europe, as well as millennials, are much more likely to pay for sustainable products, is doing so ensures that they stay loyal and true to their values. So price optimization here will be key, and understanding of this for your brand is important. Now, we've seen that sustainability is rising in importance, so continue focusing on the millennials. They're leading the way, with Generation Z fast approaching as your future consumers. A plan to drive awareness and communication will be critical for this target group. And then don't underestimate the value of on-pack communication and ensure you are clear on how best to message this to your target consumers. Focus on the causes that directly align to your brand promise and resonate deeply. And then when we look to innovation, we see consumers want more new products, giving them more choices. They're seeking products that are environmentally friendly and giving back to society. Determine how best you may do this within your brand portfolio. So overall, as a summary, we know brands that demonstrate a commitment to sustainability outperform those that do not and help to drive business growth. Companies should authentically communicate and market the good they're doing, as consumers will reward them for it. So we've suggested a number of questions and actions for you to consider and provided a lot of information today. Many of these we can, and your Nielsen team can support you on. Here you'll see a few we've highlighted. For example, we can help you determine the most effective pack design or refine your sustainability message so it resonates with your target consumer. If you have any questions on any of the material today or the areas highlighted, please reach out to Claudia and I or to your Nielsen contact. And, finally, before we close the call, sustainability is incredibly important to Nielsen. So we've recently launched our global CSR report, which highlights our commitment as a business to deliver 10 million in value each year in pro bono work, in kind giving and skills-based volunteering through our Nielsen Cares program, further evolve our data integrity and privacy practices while enhancing the products and services we deliver, and finally, reducing our emissions and energy we use at data centers. So it just leaves me to say thank you for your time in joining the call today. Following this, we'll circulate a link with the material and a recording of the session. We have got time for a couple of questions. Those that we don't get to cover, we can follow up with in a document. But of course, after the session, if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Claudia and I. Claudia, any questions we'd like to take?
Thank you, Rachel. I was just looking at the question section. There is one related to specific numbers, which is, do you have more specific numbers on each market, luxury market, mass market, and food market? Actually, this study, Sustainability Imperative, we have based our analysis and our presentation includes basically CPG, so consumer and non-consumer goods. And we have based on the survey, they are obviously specific numbers in the markets which we have shown so far, basically on willingness to pay price premium for sustainable products, and also regarding the purchase drivers. Rachel, anything to add on that? Or?
No, I think that was clear. Thanks, Claudia. We've had a second one come in. So somebody's asked, how can we explain the huge gap between people saying they would pay more for a product or a brand which is sustainable, so up to 70%, and those who would choose a product for its positive impact, 4 or 7%? And here, I think, in terms of the answer we've come back with, so, people are saying they would pay more for a product, but those that actually are choosing it with 4 or 7. Now, we saw on the slide, I don't know if I can flick back to it, I'm not sure I can, but basically there is a gap in terms of reason for buying a product and wish there were more products. So we're seeing there is an opportunity to meet demands, and we feel that that's, where there's the possibility of innovation.
I'm just trying
new products
too.
Thank you, Claudia.
This one.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Sorry.
So I think that's what the person's referring to. So we've got there 7% of consumers saying it's a reason for buying the product, but actually 22% wish there were more. So actually we do feel because of that, there is a gap there in terms of whether it's innovating new products or repositioning of current products.
Yeah, and can also be a part of the availability, no, as you said.
Yeah.
If it's not perceived as sustainable.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So
I think that's everything we've got covered, Claudia, in terms of the questions. As I said, if anyone does have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Claudia or I or any of the Nielsen client service teams. We'd be more than happy to discuss it further with you. Okay, so thank you again, everybody.
And also the links there, no? We will, you can say, oh, there's just coming something else in. I'm just looking.
Sorry, Claudia, did you see there was a further question?
I'm just looking, yeah. There came something in about if it's more trusted manufacturer-led sustainability programs or versus the NGO-led certifications, Rainforest Alliance, WOODS, and so on. It's more credible, trusted, generates more impact than the others. We have no current information, but we must say that we are working very closely on that eco-labeling part, doing a kind of projects at the moment.
I suggest Claudia, I suggest the person that asked that question to reach out to us directly.
Yeah,
and we can explain, what we are planning to do. But as you said, there isn't anything currently available at the moment, but we can talk to them about our plans. Great. Okay. So the links and the material, etc., will be circulated after the call. But again, thank you very much for joining the call today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.